It's a free program and it's extremely powerful. Imagine you've recorded, you've edited the audio, you're happy with it. What do you do with it? I think there's a couple of audio editing functions that I encourage you to look up. The very first thing I would encourage you to look up would be noise reduction. Noise reduction basically is the software attempting to identify background noise and then removing it. If you use certain programs, you can like identify an area and say, hey, this is the noise I'm trying to get rid of. Can you take this away? And then it will apply it to the whole track. Okay. Other concepts you probably want to be familiar with, you should be familiar with noise gates. Noise gates basically are, let's say again, you're in a room like this and you're getting some traffic noise and you're like, okay, I don't want my audio to pick up the traffic noise because the traffic noise is low enough. So like imagine that there's like a filter and basically if anything gets caught in the filter, it doesn't come through the audio. That's basically kind of what a noise gate does. It basically says, hey, we're not going to detect anything at this decibel level for making this sound, which can come at a cost because it takes a lot of tweaking the settings on because you have to determine how sensitive everything's going to be. Other software thing that no matter what editing software you're using, you probably want to get familiar with is a compressor. Basically, a compressor says, it compresses. It's like, hey, I don't want you to pick up the super high pitch stuff. I don't want you to pick up the super low pitch stuff. So the disadvantage again of a compressor is you can lose out some of the nuance of your voice because it might take away some of your high pitch stuff, but it might take away some of your low. Okay, and so it's like, it just kind of squeeze it together.
Jeff actually sounds like, what's that one girl from Willy Wonka? Whatever girl that ended up turning into a blueberry. That's how Jeff actually sounds. But because of technology, he sounds like you.
Yeah. Post-surgery. It was a massive success.
But at what cost?
Yeah. So those are just some basic audio editing things I'll be looking at. So again, noise gates, noise reduction, or noise removal, it depends on the program, and also compressors. And actually some soundboards may allow you to do those things automatically on the soundboard. Like the Rodecaster lets you play around with a noise gate and a compressor on the actual soundboard itself. The last thing I'll say is if all those things sound really scary and technical, then you can use AI. This is an area that is improving very, very quickly. The program that I use the most that's AI based is called Adobe. So it's like Adobe Enhanced Audio. So you can actually just like literally just Google that phrase, like Adobe Enhanced Audio. It's a platform. The free, I just use the free one because the free lets you input audio that is up to 30 minutes. And so, I mean, in all honesty, what you could do is if your episode's longer, just cut it into 30-minute sections and then just keep uploading it. And it'll do all these things we just talked about. It will identify what the background noise is. It'll identify issues with the audio, and it will kind of smooth things out and take things away. What I have found with it is it does make the audio a little bit bassy. I'll show you some demonstrations here. And you can tell the audio's been adapted. I don't think you don't sound AI, but you can definitely tell that, oh, this has been run through something. Yeah. And a lot of times it tends to amplify the bassier notes, just a note. Other things that come to mind for audio editing?
Well, so I mean, maybe a question for you, because I think a lot of times when we're looking at like jumping over into like using like exterior programs, like what would you say is the ease of use for either one of those?
For like
for a beginner.
So again, noise gates are pretty complicated, and noise gates are it's so much tweaking, and a lot depends on the audio you're using. So like if you're doing audio in different settings as in like places, then all the levels that you use for one place may not work well for another place.
Yeah.
Or like if you do an interview with another person, well then now you gotta kind of change everything. Noise gates take a lot of kind of trial and error with audio. Noise reduction is a little bit easier. We're going to talk about a program called Audacity. Audacity is free. It's software, and it's probably the manual audio editing tool I use the most, in all honesty. And the feature I use the most is the noise reduction. Just trying to see where that's going. For the noise reduction, again, you identify a portion of the audio that you want to kind of use as like the gauge, like, hey, this is the audio I'm trying to get rid of, and then you can apply it to the whole track, and it takes away. That's the tool I use the most. Even just doing that step, it takes, if you have a 20-minute audio file, that noise reduction process between identifying the section and then applying it to the whole track takes like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and it has a pretty dramatic improvement on the audio quality. So it's if that's the only editing you do, that's still pretty helpful editing compared to just taking your raw file.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit on like the last pod, the arts and office pod back on Tuesday. But it's one of those things that like I've used Audacity before, but I haven't gotten into a rhythm of it. I think I used it to tutorials on it to kind of figure some things out, but I haven't used it practically in any of my work thus far. But yeah, it's one of those things that if you find something, and this is, and again, a conversation that makes me really want to kind of re-engage with it to kind of see, okay, like maybe I just need to give it the time of day. But yeah, it's like if you can find something that can save, something that saves you 5 minutes, it's like that, right? Like if somebody told me something, like I'm working on a project right now that's like, right now we have 4.5 terabytes worth of just like raw footage, and we're probably not even like a quarter way through with like everything that we're gonna kind of need. Actually, because of the fact that like, so we also have been planning out some of the B-roll, and the B-roll we actually do have to have on like the highest quality because we're doing like some like slow mo. So yeah, just to say that we're going to be like getting a lot of like that, and that just takes a long time to edit, a long time to upload. But if somebody was like, hey, something can save you 5 minutes, like I'm taking that 100% of the time. So yeah, exactly like that. Just finding things that save you time and save you resources is always super welcome.
Yeah, the fast one will be the noise reduction on Audacity. I will say Audacity is a program that you open it up and it looks really intimidating. The user interface is not the friendliest, but it's a free program and it's extremely powerful, especially for being a free program. Most podcasters who are taking podcasting seriously at some point have used Audacity. They may have graduated to something else, but it's the starting point for so many people because it can do so much. The next thing, if that sounds scary, just using the AI thing, AI is probably going to be the direction that most things are going to go in, the next 6 months, year, 2 years, and things like that. But if you're still interested in doing manual, that's what Audacity is for. The last software thing I want to talk about is hosting. So let's imagine you've recorded, you've edited the audio, you're happy with it. What do you do with it? Well, you got to get it online. You have to put it onto a platform. There's different platforms out there. The one that I've used for my teaching podcast is Buzzsprout. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like as I talk through it. So Buzzsprout is free. It's freemium, right? So it's like you can put podcasts on there for free and it will host them for like 90 days and then it archives them for like another set period of time. And then once that time expires, then it deletes it. So that's for the free version. And then if you can do paid versions for like $5, $10 a month or whatever, and then it won't do any of that archiving or removing the clips. So that's kind of a paid option, and that's very what a lot of them are like. I think there's also like Red Circle, there's a couple other platforms like that, but a lot of them are doing very similar things. What I'm experimenting with for the verses is not using Buzzsprout because I didn't want to pay. I'm using Spotify. So Spotify is trying to go more in on podcasting. So they have Spotify for creators, and it's free, which is interesting to me. And not only is it free, but it also allows you to link to directories. What does that mean? So that means that if I put it on Spotify, I can also tell Spotify, hey, put it on Apple Music, put it on, all those other podcast platforms where people get their podcasts from. I mean, Apple Music is like by and large like the biggest, but there are other ones out there. So it does it for free. Whereas like platforms like Buzzsprout and things, you generally are paying for. So I'm fine with that. It's been going okay for like the Spotify. What I will say is that I think a lot of people still don't approach Spotify as like a podcasting platform. Still approach it more for music. They're working on it. And I also say that, Spotify may or may not really have an incentive for you incentive for them to push your podcast. So I think a lot of the promotion, I wouldn't be relying on like search on Spotify to get discovered. Podcasting is a long-term play, and not even that guarantees results. So you kind of need to go into it expecting to have to do some work on your own.
I'd be interested to kind of like why.
That's what all these other podcast platforms cost money, and this one does. So I mean, there's that adage, if it's free, then you're the product. So I'm sure they're.
Yeah, that's true. That way they can get you to. Oh, actually, that actually kind of does make sense because then they're like, if you want visibility of your podcast, and you're gonna come here to post the podcast as opposed to going to, like, I wouldn't post it on Apple Music and then post it on Spotify. I would just stay within the Spotify, website to do that. So that makes sense.
Yeah, but there's probably other things that they know of that we don't. And that's why they have it free. But
I don't think there's anything they know.
But for me, I'm fine with it for right now. Maybe in the future I'll change, but for me, I'm okay. So you'll need a hosting platform. And then you set up your hosting platform, you upload your audio, and you're good to go. Congratulations. You just started your first podcast. I did want to just take a moment to talk about why I think it is important to consider podcasting, because I think podcasting is something that